Our top focus at this hour. North Korea fired 200 artillery shells, sparking tensions in the Korean peninsula. The launches near South Korean border islands prompted the evacuation of residents. The South Korean agency has now ordered the military to be ready in the island of Baekhyong and Yeongpyeong. No damage has been reported so far.
2023년 11월 23일
This was North Korea resuming artillery firing inside the buffer zone of the west coast after unilaterally announcing the annulment of 9.19 military agreement back in November 2023. It is a provocation that threatens peace and heightens tension in the Korean peninsula.
책임은 전적으로 북한에게 있음을 엄중 경고하며
This comes as North Korea has vowed a strong response to the US-South Korea military cooperation. South Korean and US troops conducted joint combat firing drills near the border with North Korea involving heavy weapons. The drills took place over a week that ended on Thursday. Last week, in a key ruling party meeting, the North Korean leader vowed to expand the country's nuclear arsenal, launch 3 additional military spy satellites and build up its military this year. Kim cited the recent joint US-South Korean military drills as the reason to acquire overwhelming war readiness. China has meanwhile called for restraint from all sides after the latest launches. Beijing's foreign ministry has urged for creating conditions for the resumption of a meaningful dialogue. Now, to get better understanding of what's actually happening in the Korean peninsula, joining us now is our correspondent Andrew Wood. He's live with us from Hong Kong. Andrew, explain to us what's happening in the Korean peninsula right now. North Korea has fired more than 200 rounds of artillery shells. It calls it preparing for war readiness, if you will. What's actually happening in the peninsula?
Well, there's been a severe deterioration in relations between North Korea and South Korea over the past year, mainly because North Korea has fired a lot of missiles, test firing of missiles that have either landed in the Sea of Japan, which the Koreans call the East Sea, or flown over Japan and into the Pacific Ocean. And North Korea and South Korea, they've broken an agreement, or they've abandoned an agreement to try to reduce tensions by not having training drills close to the border. At the same time, of course, North Korea has said that it believes that a war might break out anytime soon. It's blaming South Korea's deeper relationship or deepening relationship with the United States and also with Japan. Japan used to be the colonial power in Korea. It was a pretty brutal time, and the North Koreans and even the South Koreans do have very bad feelings about Japan. So this is the latest thing. Now, these little islands are about 120 kilometers out to sea, about 2.5 hours ferry ride from Seoul, close to the maritime borderline, demarcation line. And they do get used to being fired at. I mean, every 5 to 10 years, there seems to be some form of incident around those islands which tend to be disputed. So in some ways, this is an escalation. It's worrying given that North Korea has actually fired so many missiles over the past year. So it's clearly it's clearly trying to develop its military capabilities. On the other hand, disputes around these islands happen, as I say, every 5 to 10 years or so on.
Right. Now, Andrew, this retaliatory rhetoric, if we may call it that, from North Korea has been a strain from 2023. It's clearly carried on to 2024, and North Korea says it's in response to US-South Korea drills. But how do we view this going into the new year? Will this trend continue?
I think that relations will continue to, well, they won't be good. I mean, don't forget, separately, America has now accused Russia of using North Korean missiles, firing them, using them in Ukraine to attack Ukraine. So the tension is there and it's ratcheting up. There's always this feeling, I think, that China could probably do more to try to rein in North Korea. And certainly before Christmas, the New Year messages, rather, between North Korea and China were very, very encouraging for both sides, it seemed, and they talked about working more closely together. It's embarrassing in a way for China because China's is North Korea's closest friend. It's also a member of the United Nations Security Council, and there's pressure on China to try to do something about North Korea. Although I do think that China in many ways just doesn't quite know what to do about North Korea, although it's better as far as China is concerned to have a weak and pliable North Korea, or a North Korea that certainly depends on China to survive, rather than having regime change. You saw what happened in Iraq, you saw what happened in Libya, and of course then you might actually have South Korea. If South Korea absorbed North Korea, you would have a potential enemy, an ally of the United States, right on the Chinese border.
Absolutely, Andrew. Thank you so much for all those insights and inputs, and thanks for joining us on WION World is One at this hour. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.